fine. This is Sean Parker. Hello, Sean. How are you doing?
Good morning, Sonia. Hello, Sean. I'm fine, thank you.
Wonderful. Good to see you. Sean was with us before, and you would sort of, because a lot of the things that you're interested in is to do with false allegations, but you're returning to talk about your new book, Compelling Speech, The Stammering Enigma. And you have a stammer, Sean.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Were you born with it?
It's a complicated thing with a stammer. It's complicated to come out with it, and there's been a lot of movement over the last couple of years about that. Lots of people think you are born with a stammer, but the reality is, according to research, is that it comes from genetics and from upbringing, and I think also from a good degree of cosmology. As in the person that you are, your soul, that kind of thing. So you put those three together, and I think you get a stammer.
So wow. do you think trauma could contribute to it in any way?
Yes, absolutely. And if I said no, I would get such a punishing from a bunch of speech therapists that I wouldn't. The one that I've got isn't that. It's more about environmental, having a chatty family. And as you can tell, it comes and goes. I'll be okay with you now, probably, because we're talking about it. But in another context, with a good friend, I might just start to not be able to speak, to block. And that's because of chatty family. So the place that it comes from is multifarious.
So when you say chatty family, is that because your voice was like drowned out or something, or you had to make yourself heard? Is that kind of the thing? I'm not quite sure how that happens.
Yeah, that is essentially it. I was the youngest in the family. I was the baby, and my family were very verbose. My dad was a drama lecturer, and my mum was, and she's still here, she was a speech therapist, which is a huge irony about the whole thing, of course. But then I had a brother who's older than me and just very, very talkative. So you become like an observational kind of person who's younger then. I do the speech replacement there. I did it then. These are the coping techniques that we have to get through a normal day, and let alone a national interview.
Nice.
Go on, Sean.
So I was going through it last night, and like obviously in the book, because this is what I find interesting. You've got a book called Compelling Speech out, but you kind of can say in the book that stammers can lead to actually compelling speeches, and that it can actually be used as like a good tool for speakers. Have you had like much success of that in the past?
Right. Yeah, it's a very, very good point. In 2013, I did a TED talk when I was living out in Istanbul as a musician and teacher there. At the end of those 10 years, I was asked to do a TED talk because I like to write and about things. And I thought, right, well, if I'm going to do such a thing, which is a big deal, it's going to be something that I really know about or care about. And that is stammering and creativity, because I'm a very creative bloke and I'm a stammerer. So let's put them together to put something out there which lasts. And it became the most watched TED talk on stammering for a good couple of years after that, 40,000 views or something like that.
Wow.
So I was pleased with it. I was stammering all the way through. It's still there, available online now. But the stammering is appropriate in that, at least,
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder how it impacts your life, because when I was a child, I developed something of a stutter, and that's the reason I wondered whether, I don't know, a stutter and stammer are the same things, are they?
Yeah.
Yes, they are. In America, they call it a stutter, and here they call it a stammer. It's pretty much that simple.
Right.
So I had one for a period of time as a child, which was definitely trauma related, and lots of, being bullied at school and all different things like that. But it went. So it can go, right?
It can go. It can. It sort of persists with 1% of us, which is sort of 70 million kind of around the world, of course.
Wow.
80 million, is it?
Wow.
But with most kids, it goes by 5, 7 as you're growing. Then it just slips off of its own volition. The theory I've got is some of us are more stubborn than others, than you. I'm more stubborn than you, and it's stuck around because of that. I mean, as you grow, you get these techniques that I'm describing, but it is there. It's always there. And eventually, when you get older, you decide to own it. Own it. And I've owned the stammer, I suppose. Yeah.
There's a lot of misconceptions about people with stammers, I think.
Are there? Yeah.
Just in general, I don't know. I think I've always thought it was just to do with just maybe anxiety or something. But I think there's always, there's a lot more to it. I mean, it happens to me sometimes just with my brain. And I'll just end up saying the same word. Like, I know it's not a natural. I think my brain just goes too quick sometimes. And I'll just be like, rice, whiskies. And then I'll eventually get the word out. But it's like my brain's trying to catch up.
Yeah.
But I think, can I just read this one little bit out to the audience? Because I think this blew my mind last night. So you've written here, this is how you explained it. The left brain is perfectly fine getting on with business, thank you, and processing at a regular and predictable clip. Or at least it would be until the wild, chaotic, imaginary, Dissonian right brain gets wind of things and shoots electric trendles that instantaneous microscopic lightning bolts across the bows of the hemisphere.
That's
and to explain that as a stammer, I was like, wow. So the two sides of the brain are trying to fight with each other.
Well, thank you for that quote, man. That's brilliant. As a part of this TED Talk, I thought to get the very interesting parts of the right and left brain ideas where they're talking to each other. There's a lot of neuroscientists who say that the creative part of the brain is the right, and the kind of systematic part is the left. Brain. Right, and the world we live in, of course, is defined for the left, so doing all those kind of practical math things that loads of us can't do, but then are super creative on the right. You know, maybe we're some of those. I certainly am. Maybe our viewers are. But when those two hemispheres clash, when you're trying to get the words out from the left, it knows what it wants to do, but the creative part starts to interfere with that. A stammer can arise, and it can just block and shut down. And that's certainly how it feels. I mean, you can't feel a stammer happening in your brain, but you hear it happening in your tongue. And that is very much how it feels. You're thinking too much. And with the thing you talked about, it's cluttering. It's connected to having an overactive imagination. Basically, I have it as well. You know, there's loads of, all the words are there. They just won't always come out in the right way. And with some of us, it'll just block down.
Wow, how interesting.
Is singing, they're talking in the comments, which is interesting because some of them are pointing out Gareth Gates, who was an X Factor. I don't know if he actually won X Factor, but he was an X Factor, and he stuttered and stammered when he talked, but when he sang, he was absolutely fine. So, and somebody says singing is part of the therapy. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am. I kind of talk about it in the book as well, in that it's almost universal amongst people who stammer. They say people who stammer, not stammerers, to try and put it people first.
Yes, fair point.
Yeah, is that when you sing, you're thinking out of a different part of your brain, and so when you do that, you stop the cognition, which is producing words with sort of our communication here, and it goes into a performative thing, so that it doesn't matter. You're not thinking in the same way. And thus, Gareth Gates, it was beautiful to watch for all of us, wasn't it? You could see him go into this other sort of creature who wasn't anxious when he sang.
That's what made him endearing to people. That was it. It was very human, you know, because that could have been any one of us going through that. But I think I do associate with anxiety like Sean does. So because example, when you're in that position, right, and you know it's happening, does that not in itself generate anxiety? Because I feel that if that was me, I kind of briefly remember as a child getting very flustered when I couldn't get words out.
That's it. It would be disingenuous to say it doesn't. It absolutely is there. I would just say a third. Yes, it's a compounded thing. It's just a third of things. And the thing is that a lot of us, Winston Churchill to Rowan Atkinson to Samuel L. Jackson, the anxiety just does not seem very obvious. You know, there's people just out there doing their thing. Kylie Minogue, Marilyn Monroe, you know, they're just out there doing their thing. So you don't really associate the anxiety because they've internalized it all, but they're still wanting to present. I mean, I've got a bit of that as well. I confess I do. You know, it's I'm quite kind of confident, but I am anxious in speaking, but that can lead to a good listener and a person that's quite engaged, you know. So these all have their benefits for sure. And I don't know a stammerer who isn't like that.
So you're saying that a woman who is traditionally known as one of the sexiest Western women in sort of Western culture, Marilyn Monroe, had a stammer?
Apparently, Marilyn, I didn't know her, but for Marilyn Monroe did have a stammer, yes, yes, that's what I've heard anyway.
It's mind blowing. How has this impacted your life?
What, the stammer?
Yeah.
Well, it's been core to things, you know. With the family, I love my family, by the way. If my mum's watching, she may well be. Hello, mum, don't worry about all this. And she's absolutely fine with all this.
Hello,
but obviously, they tend to think that they might have done something wrong, you know. But it's not really about that. It's about the fact that anything you have when you're growing up, whatever kind of trauma or youth experience, stays, and it stays inside. And if you don't really deal with it in some way or other, then it will eat you, won't it? Or it will affect you really badly. So it has been bad in the sense of I haven't had the confidence to go for certain jobs. I had to change my name when I was 20 to Sean. I'm actually born Ben, but I'm Sean Ben Parker now. I can say Ben fine now, which is quite ironic. I can't say Sean very well. So it's that's kind of how that's figured out. And when I was living with my ex-wife back in the 90s, we were going to move house, and I said, well, can't actually move anywhere that has like a D at the start of the address, because I won't be able to say it. So it's even down to those ridiculous details. It seems ridiculous now, because I will just stammer it. I'll just spell it if I can't say it now, but I wouldn't have done that at 20. So it has lots of little impacts, and lots of big ones too. Like here I am talking to you now, having written my book about it. So it has a creative value as well, you know.
So you can empower people. Let me read you this comment. I think it's interesting. Morning, Pewey, Stephen Pugh. Teachers at my Catholic school thought I was a demon as I wrote with my left hand and mirror wrote, which they called satanic. I remember it being a big thing in my first year at primary school. I stammer when my head goes boom. So there is that traumatic association right there, isn't it?
Wow. Yes, indeed. That's the kind of thing where I wouldn't have anything to add, because she has their own
he knows
what's happened there.
Exactly. He's been through it. They're singing here. They're all singing. I've seen pictures. Oh, she was just an ordinary girl. Who's that he's talking about? No idea who you're talking about. Probably Marilyn Monroe. Right. So Sean,
sorry, can I dive in again?
Yeah.
Sean, what would you say to like a parent now that had a child that's just kind of starting to develop a stammer? Have you got any advice for that side? For like, I know that's a difficult one again.
No, that's fine. Yeah. What I would say in putting myself back into being 5 years old, because that was the 80s and this is the 2020s. So things have changed in terms.
Yeah, just with lockdown and everything, and kids. I think kids are struggling with speech a lot since lockdowns and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Of course, indeed. Just give them the space, give them the time. Just listen. Don't concern with the fact that how this will impact their future. I think that's a bit of a big deal, because if you let kids know about the fact that you're worried for their future too much, that will cause its own kind of anxiety. So I think possibly just be yourself, be happy, child. Obviously that they want that, but also to communicate that by not talking or giving too much of anything about the stammer, but listening. And if other people around them are making a racket so they can't listen, quietly get them to stop doing that. That would be the best. You know, don't have a favorite, of course, but encourage the other one to give the other one some space. I think would be the best advice I can give, without anybody knowing about it, because you know what kids are like. They'll not like that. So
that's important stuff.
Thank you.
That's important stuff, because it is difficult. Parents are already, you know, these little things do not come with a DIY book, how to deal with them, right? So when you're hit with stuff which is neurotypical, I presume this goes under the banner of neurotypical, does it? Or atypical, rather?
It's neuroatypical. I call people who don't stammer speech typical in the book, just to give it a bit of a laugh, not to be too woke about it, but to give it a kind of speech typical and the atypical, absolutely. Disfluent is a fair thing, I think, but the stammering community has its own kind of movements, and at the moment, stammer who used to be the British Stammering Association, of whom I'm a member, are doing Stammering Pride. You probably haven't heard about this, and not many people have, but they've kind of taken the Pride thing and applied it to stammering, where essentially you need to be proud of your stammer. And just say, I'm a stammerer, that's it. Now, this is quite difficult for the speech therapists who make their money and have their identity out of treating it, making people better. So there's a huge identity, which I go on. That's actually the reason that it's called compelling speech, is because I've tried
Hold
to get
it up. Come on, let people see it.
I do not sell. Oh, sorry, that way.
There you go. Compelling speech. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Sonia.
You're welcome.
They're like, there's the movement of like people should be out about things and happy about what they're doing. But then there's the reality that if I didn't stammer, I would be happier. And you can't really avoid that. I don't think you can really avoid that as a 47-year-old. But lots of the stammering guys are saying, just do it, be proud of it, don't care about what anybody else says.
Right.
You know, I kind of talk about that in there in the sense of, do you want me to be an air traffic controller? You know, do you want me to be a news reader?
Right.
I'm not sure that even I do. Just because I think I should be is not enough.
Right,
So,
exactly. I completely take your point. Absolutely, like I'm not about to be a ballet dancer. Absolutely, I completely take. You
very well, but you know.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, I have the grace of it, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like there's quite a big. Is there quite a big humour in that community?
I think so. I think there's a lot of self-deprecation, like being able to laugh at oneself. That's definitely what I'm getting from you, Sean.
Yes, it's still Britain, right? Despite all the culture wars and everything else, we are still British, and the way we sort of survive in doing that is by taking the Nicky out of each other and yourself first. Yeah,
you know, sarcasm all the way.
It's really valuable, and it's not very often cruel. When it's cruel, you stop it. But I hardly ever see that.
Good to hear that. Everybody, this is Sean Parker. His book is Compelling Speech, The Stammering Enigma. Happy first day of spring, Sean. Lovely to see you with us. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you, Sean. Brilliant stuff.
Have a great week. Take care. Take care. How insightful, Sean. See, it's really important to be able to understand all of us, right? All of us. How are we all working? How are we all functioning?